June 24, 2021. The clock just struck 1 a.m. Julie, a 25-year-old woman living alone in her beachfront condo in Miami, Florida, had just laid down from a long, tiring workday. It's a normal night. Until it isn't. Boom. A deafening, thunderous crash just outside her front balcony. What the heck was that? Turns out, the pool deck had just collapsed into the parking garage below. The time? 1:14 a.m. And just 8 minutes later, at 1:22 a.m., the entire 12-story building follows. The whole collapse took less than 12 seconds. Now, Julie isn't a real person, but this is a real story, and the 2021 collapse of the Champlain Towers South condo in Florida took the lives of 98 people, many of them within seconds in their sleep. So what happened? Well, the concrete destroyed itself. That's the short answer. But when we dig deeper into this case, it gets even more interesting. Construction of Champlain Towers South was completed in 1981, and by the time it collapsed, it was just 40 years old. But engineers had flagged serious structural damage back in 2018. A report warned that failure to fix the waterproofing will cause the extent of concrete deterioration to expand exponentially. By April 2021, 2 months before the collapse, the damage was noted as much worse. A $15 million repair program had been approved. Yet, due to incompetence, or maybe they had other priorities, who knows, no one thought to actually initiate the repair work. And so, without repair, the concrete had been quietly destroying itself for years. Nobody could see it from the outside. But on that Thursday night, everything came crashing down. This case is one of many, and I'm going to explain to you why the concrete in America is a national problem. But before I dive into this further, I'm hungry for some pasta. Let's take a quick pit stop to Rome, Italy. Damn, how old is this thing anyways? 1900 years? Okay, I don't know about you guys, but I'm confused. How the heck did the Romans manage to build something so massive that lasts nearly 2 millennia, yet modern day us can't even make sure a residential condo stays standing for 50 years? Okay, so I did some research. Let's take a closer look at the Pantheon. The Romans knew that concrete is weak under tension, the kind of stress you get when you bend something or you pull it apart. So they solved this not by changing the material, but by designing around the limitation. The Pantheon's dome works because of its shape. The curve converts the weight into compression all the way down. No tension, no problem. Don't worry if you don't really understand this, I don't either, but all you need to really know is that what the Romans did, it worked. They created the Pantheon and a bunch of other structures that have lasted for multiple millennia. So the real question is, why did we change it? The Industrial Revolution. All of a sudden, engineers needed flat slabs, horizontal beams, skyscrapers, structures that arches or curves can't really build on their own. So in the 1860s, a French gardener named Joseph Monnier, who was just tired of his concrete flower pots cracking, came up with a pretty revolutionary idea. Put steel rebar inside the concrete. Steel handles tension, concrete handles compression. Together, they are the perfect team, right? Well, it worked. It built the modern world as we know of it today. But eventually, scientists discovered a major problem with Monnier's solution. Fresh concrete is extremely alkaline, and that alkalinity forms a thin protective layer directly around the rebar. As long as that layer exists, the steel doesn't rust. But concrete is full of tiny pores, and over time, carbon dioxide from the air slowly seeps in. It reacts with that concrete and gradually lowers the pH. Once the pH drops far enough, that protective layer is gone. Now the steel is exposed. Moisture gets in, oxygen gets in, the steel starts to rust. And the rust expands, up to 4 times the original size of the steel, pushing outward against the surrounding concrete until it cracks, essentially destroying the structure from the inside out. The worst part, you can't see any of this from the outside. The concrete looks completely normal. And that's why the engineers at Champlain Towers South didn't think to really act on the problem. They pushed off their $15 million repair program and let the collapse happen. Reddit user KindAwareness3073 says, concrete can last virtually forever. What fails is the steel reinforcing. The better protected it is from moisture, the longer it will last. Routine maintenance can extend the life indefinitely. Reddit user The Only Epi, routine maintenance can, well, we're fucked. And I think that sums up the problem pretty well. Okay, I don't want to fearmonger. No, your house is not going to collapse tomorrow. Knock on wood. But I do want to stress that the timeline is shorter than you would expect. After World War II, the US had a huge construction boom. 40 million housing units were built in the 30 years between 1945 to 1975. And private housing starts rose by a factor of 20 to nearly 1.7 million in 1950. The concrete foundations under virtually all of these houses, poured starting in the late 1940s, have now been in the ground for 70 to 80 years. And for most multi-story concrete buildings, like Champlain Towers South, the entire structure is reinforced concrete. Standard reinforced concrete structures are designed to last 50 to 100 years. Let me repeat, 50 to 100 years. The ones built in the 1950s and 60s are right in that window now. Some have already exceeded it. And it's not just buildings, it's bridges too. According to the 2025 Infrastructure Report Card published by the American Society of Civil Engineers, 45% of US bridges have already exceeded their planned 50-year design lives. A third of the entire national bridge inventory needs repair or replacement right now. And at that current rate of replacement, bridges being built today would need to last 126 years to keep up. That math doesn't work. The Fern Hollow Bridge in Pittsburgh collapsed in 2022. It opened in 1973. That's exactly 50 years, right on schedule. So we're not talking about a future problem, we're talking about a problem that is actively unfolding right now across the country, in the concrete under your building, in the bridges on your commute, mostly invisible until it isn't. If engineers have known about this problem for years, what is America actually doing about it? Well, in 2021, President Joe Biden signed the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, also known as the IIJA. It's a $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill and the largest federal investment into American infrastructure in decades. Due to the bill, America's infrastructure grade improved from a C- in 2021 to a C in 2025. I mean, C's get degrees, right? But then something awkward happened. We realized just how deep this problem goes. Because even with the IIJA, the United States still falls roughly $3.7 trillion short of the infrastructure investment needed to bring the country into a proper state of repair. By February 2026, nearly 5 years after the bill was signed, only around 40% of the entire planned budget had actually been spent. That means that while the concrete problem is actively accelerating in real time, a massive chunk of the repair money was still sitting in paperwork, approvals, frozen grants, delayed contracts, and political gridlock. And now we come to a critical realization. The IIJA expires in September 2026. By the time you're watching this video, we have 4 months to wrap things up. 4 months to outlay over half of the original budget. So what is Congress doing as of May 2026? Well, they're trying again. On May 18th, lawmakers introduced a new proposal called the Build America 250 Act. The bill intended to replace the IIJA once it officially expires in September 2026. The good news about this bill is that it strengthens funding for bridge repair and maintenance. For the first time in over a decade, the federal bridge money will be distributed based directly on the actual condition of bridges in each state, which sounds obvious but somehow wasn't the case until now. The bill also closes a loophole that previously allowed states to redirect bridge repair money towards unrelated projects. All of this is genuine progress towards making sure that the bridges that need repair will actually get repaired in time. But unfortunately, aside from the progress in bridge maintenance, there is a huge problem with Build America 250. This bill repeals funding for programs in climate resilience, flood mitigation, carbon reduction, active transportation, and more. Programs that were meant to slow the environmental conditions accelerating concrete decay in the first place. Because climate change doesn't just affect weather, it affects the chemistry. Higher temperatures, flooding, humidity, saltwater intrusion, and rising carbon dioxide levels all accelerate the deterioration of reinforced concrete. So, while this bill increases damage control, it weakens prevention. And if concrete deteriorates faster than we can repair it, then the United States may never actually catch up with this problem. Now, while I was researching the IIJA and Build America 250 bills, I was very adamantly trying to look for anything that implicates funding for housing and building repair. But after failing to find a single keyword in these thousands of pages, I realized that there is an even bigger issue at hand that no one is talking about. Federal infrastructure bills focus almost entirely on transportation: bridges, highways, roads, rail, transit, etc. But reinforced concrete is everywhere. It's in office buildings, parking garages, schools, apartments, condos. And unlike bridges, most of these structures don't receive federal funding for routine maintenance. In March 2026, reports showed that deferred maintenance across federal buildings had already surpassed $50 billion, with nearly half of government buildings now considered to be in poor condition. Such poor condition that the cost to demolish or repair them outweighs any potential reuse. And private housing may be even more concerning. Millions of apartment buildings and the condos built during America's post-war construction boom are now reaching the age where reinforced concrete deterioration starts becoming a serious maintenance issue. And maintenance is expensive. Very expensive. Nearly 2 in 3 homeowners have delayed or ignored a maintenance task in the past 5 years. Which raises a really uncomfortable question for us. What happens when entire buildings reach the end of their intended lifespan? Do we retrofit them for millions of dollars? Do we demolish them? Rebuild them? Who pays for that? The owners? The city? Taxpayers? Insurance companies? These questions have no obvious answer, and that's how something as foundational and ubiquitous as concrete becomes a heated political issue in the middle of our partisan country. As we reach the end of this discussion, I want to reiterate that the main message of this video is not that concrete deteriorates or that buildings crack. This isn't revolutionary stuff. Engineers have known all of this for decades. The question I'm proposing, and frankly don't have an answer to, is what happens when a society built on maintenance slowly stops maintaining itself? Because here's the secret. Reinforced concrete can last an incredibly long time. if people are willing to continuously inspect it, repair it, and invest in it before the damage becomes catastrophic. But that level of maintenance is expensive, it's inconvenient, and politically, it's hard to sell in a system that prioritizes short-term political wins over long-term maintenance. So that's how, year after year, the damage gets deferred, the inspections get delayed, the repairs get postponed, all while the concrete erosion keeps accelerating. Champlain Tower South was only 40 years old when it collapsed. The engineers had already identified major structural deterioration years before the collapse. The repair program had already been approved. The work just hadn't started yet. That's not a concrete problem, that's an us problem.